you everybody for coming. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First thing on our agenda this evening is the review and the approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. I'm not exactly sure this particular comment belongs here or if it belongs a little bit later on in our agenda. And forgive my memory as always, but I believe Mr. Borgstrom, during his comments at the podium, had also brought to our attention that Domino's has got a conditional use permit and they may be in violation of that conditional use permit. And I don't know if we need to massage or add to the minutes and use that as the basis as a formal observation, formal complaint, if that's appropriate.
We did send a notice out to
Okay.
Domino's after that. I did take a look at the building and I saw that based on the CUP that was given to them, they right now would not be. I didn't notice any particular issues with the status quo, but I did send a letter reminding them their responsibilities, and I will expect to follow up on them during this year, probably as it gets warmer out.
But I don't know if we're using his comment at the public meeting as a basis for that letter, and if it's appropriate to note that in the minutes or not, but I thought I would just
Well, let's
bring
see.
that to.
How would you prefer to word that then?
I would prefer you find something much more elegant than what I just tried to articulate
Okay.
here, so.
Well, we can certainly do that.
And I would encourage you to go back and look at the video and try to capture Mr. Borgstrom's comments as accurately as you can.
Sure. We can certainly take a look at that. Linda and I will do that, no problem.
Okay.
But like I said, we did send a notice out to them to note that they currently didn't seem to be meeting those when I was over there, I didn't notice a lot of noise issues or anything like that, so I'm not sure that it's actually as large of an issue as some people might say, but we can definitely follow up.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. With that said, if there are any other additions or corrections?
I had a number of them, but I, of course, didn't bring them with me. I'd like to just move that we table this until the next meeting and approve the minutes after any changes are made at the next meeting.
I have one other item to add in there so we can get it incorporated between now and then. Page 4, I got, it says, looked at the conditions suggested by Wilker and he is agreeable with the conditions set forth. Could we change that last line to he is generally agreeable with the conditions set forth from Wilker pending future clarification? I was generally in agreement, but there were a few items that I think we need to still work out. So, just so I'm not in agreement, just carte blanche.
We need a second to Dwayne's motion, to table the minutes until the next.
I will second that motion.
Yeah, forgive me, sir. So we do have a motion, we do have a second. Unless there's any additional comments to be had, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chair, I think what we'll do is, if anyone has changes, why don't you email them to us here, and what we'll do is Linda and I will do a red line of this copy here so that you can see what the changes were, and then we'll have that for the next meeting in March. That way, we don't have to belabor it a long time during the next meeting. Okay?
Perfect.
That'd be great. And same thing for everybody else if there's any other changes you see.
And before we jump on to the balance of the items on the agenda, I kind of mentioned at the end of the last meeting that we typically vote on a chair every year, beginning of every year. I am happy to continue to fill that spot. I'm also very happy to concede it if there's somebody else that wants to do it. It's really up to you gentlemen. I realize I've been here a few years, so.
I nominate Chairman Ferris to continue as chairman.
Thank you, sir.
For his request.
Sorry. We have a nomination. Do we have a second? I'll second that. A nomination and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all again, gentlemen.
Yeah,
I'll
thank you.
try to keep it up. Good job. Next on the agenda, discussion of the Quick Trip request for a conditional use permit.
Sure, and I'm just gonna reference this, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind. As you go through the package, you can see there are a number of items that were submitted to us. And apparently this has been something that's been talked about previously from what I've been told. But you can see the CUP request from Quick Trip. This is mostly informational tonight, so I think we're gonna get out of here before 10 o'clock tonight. But what I wanted to do, and my preference, and of course I can be corrected by the board, is to try and bring items like this to you at a first meeting as informational, which then allows you the time to review those at length. And then what we would plan on doing is if the board's agreeable, we would end up having a CUP hearing for Quick Trip at the March meeting, if that's where the board wants to go with it. I took a look at it, and then you also have the engineer's statements there, which I'll go through. There's a number of factors. We're doing the zoning review and fees related to it here at City Hall. But it did take, going through the general comments that he had there, they're looking to demolish the existing Quick Trip facility, construct off-site parking consisting of 14 stalls. The positive for us is that it is looking to reduce the impervious coverage by approximately half an acre, so that's a positive for water. You can see the previous zoning there. It will be requiring conditional use permit because the structure itself it's no longer be a parking attached to a structure. And otherwise, people say, well, there's parking right now, what does it need to be? Well, it's gonna be a totally separate parking lot from the structure, so it does require that. Just as if, you wanna turn your back, you want to turn an empty lot across the street into parking, well, you can't do that because it's not attached, so that's the whole reason behind it. We're gonna require all the necessary permits with, MnDOT and the right-of-way permits and things like that. We expect to have before this would take place, we would have our construction meeting. They're gonna be removing existing water services, and they're gonna be capping off sanitary sewer services as well. We have, we'll be doing a plan, an ISO Cando plan, so it complies with the glare ordinance. Then we'll also be making sure that their stormwater, which will be upgraded, doesn't conflict with the light pole footings. And then, we expect to, check into the item that, was brought to my attention too with the design in terms of the corner going over the property line. But, we expect to see some access easements as well. The final part that we expect to see would also be the installation of a, crossing, like a crosswalk or something of that nature, because we're gonna have truck drivers going across the street, on a frequent basis, we expect, and, we know that that's gonna have an impact, for them going Quick Trip. So it makes sense to have that done right away, before we get into anything too in-depth. Those are the larger concerns that we had, that were noted by the engineer. You have the design there, and with that, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to open up to any, discussion that you have.
They pulled the fuel tanks out of there when they shut it down, didn't they?
Yes.
I think they did, okay.
Yep.
That's the only thing that jumps to my mind immediately in terms of something we need to make sure of.
Yep.
Okay.
The only other thing would be the holding tank at the car wash. I'm sure they got it
For water?
for oils.
Oils, okay.
Flammable waste trap.
Yep.
Is that what you're talking about?
That would be the only thing.
Okay. Kind of unfortunate we can't have a restroom over there or something of that nature.
I'm sure Quick Trip looks at it like,
Yeah.
come to our store.
Like I say, there's a restaurant, it's just Quick Trip.
From a first thing you're gonna see if you take a left off of Highway 14 as you got coming to Casson, is there anything we need to do as it pertains to making it presentable?
They do have a landscape plan which
Yeah.
shows some
Yep.
buffering
It's one of the last.
all the way around there.
That was a question I had, was about screening, if you prefer, obviously, as the planning board, you're looking for the highest and best use of this property, and unfortunately, this is probably not the highest and best use of the property, but at the same time, it's
Yeah.
private ownership, so it's difficult to dissuade them from using it for that.
Page L1.
Nice big ones, okay. They're trying to make it look like something.
And I guess my honest opinion is that their parking trucks are already around a
Yeah.
vacant store, so this is definitely gonna clean it up and.
I think the parking lot looks better than
Yeah.
unused buildings.
Yeah, okay. And I think a few people have attempted to use the building in some fashion, and Quick Trip was not interested in allowing them to use it.
reduction in impervious surfaces is, on the west end?
That's correct.
All the rest of it's still gonna be blacktop, or new blacktop?
As far as my knowledge is, they'll be, I would imagine they're gonna resurface this, so.
Getting clarification on that point wouldn't be a bad.
Absolutely, yeah, as we move forward, I mean, and part of this would just be identifying questions we have for that hearing as well, because they're always gonna be able to answer them easier than I can directly, so. But I will follow up and make sure that they're aware of that.
No, that's a county road, so probably need to get the county engineer to weigh in on the crosswalk and
Mhm.
any signage.
Are they changing the widths of the entrances at all? I don't see it here. If they do plan on, our county engineer's gonna wanna know that too.
Mhm. Absolutely. No, I don't know what the current widths are, but I can certainly follow up and ask them about that as well.
We don't have any storm sewer in this area, do we? It's all running in the ditch. Yeah, yeah.
It's protected,
It is all going into catch basins on the property and going underground to the very west side. I'm looking at sheet SWP one. That's the one that shows it, but. SP3 also shows that.
Those more familiar with truck parking things, do we have any concerns about oils, diesel fuel and all of that running into our ditch and waterways? Any more than what happens naturally anyway?
I think probably pretty safe on that as far as most of what would probably be liable is what goes on across the road.
Yeah, and that all runs right into the ditch anyway, so, runs into the catch basin and the overflow is the ditch, so.
Okay. We've got a little work for you, Tim.
Yeah, well, absolutely, those are good follow-up questions. If you think of anything else, I can definitely forward it on to them as well. I'll follow up with the county engineer to see if he has any concerns about screening or signage or anything like that, and then, I'll talk with the city engineer and see if he has anything else regarding those other points that were brought up, width of entrances and things like that.
So are you thinking the crosswalk would be on the west drive or the east drive?
You know, I was thinking it would probably be on the east drive, because that would line up better with Quick Trip itself, but, you know, I suppose that we probably can tell them where we want it, you know, if we have a preference of the benefit, if you've got input on it, I mean, now would be the time, so.
I would concur the east drive is probably preferred, because
Okay.
once people come around that corner, they're gonna be getting up to speed relatively quickly,
Yep.
so.
Right. Okay, that's kinda what I figured too.
I mean, the question is, do the two drives line up or not? Cause that would be, I'm trying to look at the site detail on the
No,
SD.
I don't think they line up.
And I don't see anything that shows both aerials that,
But is there a sidewalk there on the other side of the street?
no, there's no sidewalk either side.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just way to the east of it.
Okay.
Or way
See,
to-
I'm
it's way to
looking-
the west of it.
I'm looking at that one.
Oh,
That
sure.
shows, I mean,
They're pretty close,
you know, that's gotta be close.
That's kinda what I figured, that the goal would be to line those two up,
Right,
basically.
yeah, so they can
because that's
just
where they're
cross.
gonna cross right
Right.
at Quick Trip.
Yeah, once they're filled up, they're gonna drive across there, so. I'd love to see the crosswalk up at the side, up at the road, but that ain't gonna be user friendly by any means.
Right.
If I was a truck driver, I wouldn't walk up there and cross. I'd play Frogger and get across however.
Anything else? All right, well, I'll be glad to bring those to their attention, and then, as I said, I don't know how you've done in the past, but I know we'll provide a public notice of this hearing, and I'm not sure if you typically have passed resolutions or passed rather a motion here to order the hearing, but, I mean, if that's what you've done in the past, then it's in order.
Conditional use permits, no, I mean, there is a defined process in place that we just go through, I believe we're on a time limit of 60 days?
Once we've considered it, we have
Okay.
60 days to approve it officially, but just for calling the hearing itself, I don't know if you guys haven't, but I suppose as a chair, you can just call it too, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
By all means.
Okay, we'll consider it meeting
Please.
ordered for the next regular meeting then.
Please.
Okay, thank you.
And I typically have not been involved in that in the past. but
Sure.
It's of some value. and
Well,
that-
I'm learning how everybody does everything here, so that's all right. You just tell me to shut up, that's fine.
I'll come up with something more
You
creative.
schedule-
Okay, well, don't put that in the minutes, then, all right?
No.
I think you schedule it and then we're all ready for it.
Yeah, well, we can do it that way too.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
My pleasure. Next up, discussion on possible Meadow Lodge Apartments rezoning.
Sure, and hopefully you have this in your packet here, it's just one sheet, and Linda, maybe you could talk about, you handled this initially.
Well, the Meadow Lodge Suites is the one in purple, which is R2. They wanted to expand their parking lot, and once I started looking at it, it's not even a
It's not
use
zoned for
in-
apartments.
Yeah, it's not a use for apartments in that zone. I'm thinking whenever we did the zoning the last time, because the apartment building right next to it is an R3. But the other apartment building is in an R2. So I haven't been able to figure that one out. I can't find anywhere when
That was zoned.
that was rezoned for any reason, and I don't know why we would have rezoned it to something that it wasn't. But we have one apartment building in one zone and one apartment building in another zone.
The
So-
other issue that we identified when we took a look at that is that the row of houses that's on the north side of, I think that's Sixth Street Southwest, is also, it's zoned as R3 when clearly they're single-family residences. So, one thing that Linda and I discussed is that this may have been a clerical oversight, and, you know, I think if the board wanted to, they certainly could consider it that way, and then, it would just be a matter of basically redoing the maps. However, if you felt there was a reason that was zoned that way, it would certainly is possible, then, it's of course up to the board. But we wanted to bring it to your attention before we did anything else with it.
I think this happened back in '96, the last time we updated everything.
Yeah, I'd want to find out what the history was.
Yeah,
whether
because
this
I
was-
haven't been able to go back, I've gone back and looked, and I can't find any rezone or anything for that property. And everything else in R2 is older core residential, so everything else on the southwest side is the purple, the R2, except for these homes here, and then the one apartment building, and those are R3. So I don't know if they did it as trying to keep lines straighter.
Could have been simple oversight.
It
That they didn't, you know, that-
absolutely could have been.
Yep.
But it came up because the one apartment building wants to expand their parking lot. And right now, they can't do it. And the big question is, do we want them to go through, to pay for and go through the rezone? Either way, we have to do a public hearing. Do we want to make them pay for it, or do we wanna do it as an administrative process and fix these houses at the same time? Or do you wanna just leave it alone?
I would be hesitant to leave alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would,
Needs to get fixed.
Yep.
I like the administrative side of it, cause it was
Well, you can also kick that up to the city council, because it's a financial thing in my mind. I don't know if we should be making financial decisions, because I have no idea if it's $5 or $50,000 as to what the client would.
Well, it would be a $300 rezone fee. And usually that covers the cost of the publication
Yep.
and mailing the notice to everybody.
But ultimately, was it an oversight on
Yeah.
the city's part in the first place, and it should have never been rezoned? So, are you forcing
Yeah.
somebody to go through something that somebody made a clerical error in the
Yeah.
first place?
And I have no idea.
Yeah, and it is an R3, cause
Yeah.
it's an apartment
Looking
building.
at the old map, it looks like they just wanted to straighten up some lines.
Yeah.
And included the apartment, or apartments.
Well,
Apartments,
in
yeah.
'96, they didn't have good satellite like we do now.
Here and here.
Right.
So they probably just cleaned
Because
this
those two
up.
buildings have always been there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, I'm all right kicking it up to the council as far as the fee, but as far as the rezone, I think that's the purview of this committee.
Yeah. No, I agree with you completely. We should need to get it cleaned up, and I don't wanna, these guys need to do something with their parking lot, I don't wanna be the reason why
Yeah.
it's not getting done, so it's.
And I guess the question about rezoning all the houses to R1 is, could there ever be an apartment building there, which would make sense down in this area, and that's why that's zoned R3.
And, I don't know if it impacts the residential house at this stage in the game. I guess in my mind, the courtesy would be to document the zoning situation,
Mhm.
tell them that if they want it rezoned, by all means, they can approach us and have it rezoned.
Yeah.
If it's part of a bigger clerical error that we need to clean up,
Mhm.
if that's the current perspective on it, I don't have any problem sharing that.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think if it was a clerical error, then it should be done administratively. If it wasn't that, then it should be done through application. And then, in terms of the fees, that should be the purview of council. So whether or not they wanna
Well, and I just-
waiver
yeah, I don't want-
over those fees.
I don't wanna be alarmist about the whole thing. Somebody knocks on my door and says, hey, would you be interested in rezoning your home? It's never gonna provoke a positive response. So, I'm not trying to force somebody to do something they don't wanna
Right.
do, just trying to educate them and say, hey, if you're comfortable with this, we'll leave you alone. If you wanna change, we'll do what we can to help you.
In the clerical, or maybe just the coloring of the map.
I got a blue crayon.
And I'm afraid that one gets too far.
I guess from my perspective, I guess that was kind of where I was going with it. If we choose not to do with the single-family homes, because it isn't an issue,
Yep.
that certainly is fine. I don't think we have to change that.
Yeah.
You know, it looked like, from what I could tell, that they probably, it was inadvertent.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that there would necessarily even be a need to go to a council.
Okay.
Frankly, if we considered it as a step, you know, if we were just cleaning the map up.
Sure.
It's a matter of us talking to the GIS folks and saying, hey, this needs to be purple instead of, or blue instead of purple, or whatever.
Mhm.
And if the board's comfortable with that, and it sounds like you are,
Sure.
Yep.
then we could certainly handle that, there would be no cost, hopefully no fuss. I think we would still have to consider the request for expansion of the parking lot and make sure that that meets all of our criteria separately, but we haven't received that official request yet, have we?
No.
So when that comes, that'll be a separate issue, so.
Well, and as elegantly as I can, we are a recommending body to the city council, so I don't know if
Absolutely.
we have the authority to say do it or don't do it, but.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your feedback.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I think that's, to me, it seems like kind of a good thing to fix and clean up.
Oh, yeah.
As we go through, you know, the same thing's true with the code, you know, I've been trying to learn the code here the last month, and, looking at the map and trying to identify where there may be some inconsistencies. You know, we know there are some, and, quite a few. But, we're gonna try and clean those up whenever we can. And I'll just be bringing you, as I said, informational. I just prefer to get that feedback from the board before we do anything else with it, so I think I've got a good idea. Did you have any other comments, gentlemen?
Nope.
Nope, okay. Linda, is that enough direction for now then?
That is,
Okay.
thank you.
Number 5 is off the agenda?
That's right.
All right. Is there anything else anyone would like to discuss?
I did have just a comment, and I don't know how far you guys have gotten with, the review of our zoning code overhaul. I'd like to see that completed this year. The question I have is, you know, as I said, going through the code right now, you know, as these permits and things are coming up, I'm applying our current zone zoning code to those. The question is when we would start to, because our new code may not have dramatic differences, but there are a number of differences. You know, what kind of a date are you looking at to start applying that instead? Now, obviously, we would wait until it was approved, we set, you know, just, you know, January 1st, 2021 is when that code starts, or what are your I mean, I fully expect to be completed with that changeover, because obviously it's been dragging out a while already, so I'm looking for feedback on that, if you have an opinion.
That is a very good question.
Okay.
Does anybody have any thoughts on that particular matter? That's another one of those potential.
Have you talked with Laura Chamberlain as to where she feels
Yeah,
at with it?
yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a couple chapters she needs to roll out still, and then, in reality, it's just a matter of, you know, my goal obviously is to bring it, I don't know, I mean, every city does it differently. You know, the question I had was, you know, planning and zoning obviously is gonna take a look at that, you know, do any of the other committees take a look at it, you know, does Park and Rec need to take a look at it and see how it meets with any of the park kind of things, you know, or setbacks and things like that. So, I mean, planning and zoning obviously is the number one. We wanna make sure you guys are comfortable, and then you would make a recommendation to the council. But I mean, for me, it's a matter of scheduling. If we only have one meeting a month, I'm not gonna put this on a special meeting for Park and Rec or something like that. But just making sure that those things are all satisfied before we would, you know, have council approval. Cause I think once the council's comfortable with it, we can move forward, but, I mean, I'd like to get it done, because there's a lot of things kinda hanging out there that, you know, we were short-staffed last year, and things didn't necessarily all get followed up on, cause that's what happens. But I wanna get them off the plate, cause it's just, you know, when somebody comes in, they've got a development, and they say, hey, this is what I'm working off of, well, we change codes in the middle of the boat, you know, this gets messier.
Right. But if we can get it done, first of the year is always a nice time, and if we can notify contractors or whatever that, hey, first of 2021, things are changing.
Sure.
They at least know and they have warning.
Sure. Well, I mean, my goal would be to get it done by the summer.
Right.
So that we give them 6 months warning, really.
Yeah. Right.
So that there's no question, nobody can come back and say, hey, we didn't know, or blah, blah, blah. I mean,
Right.
there should be no excuses then. And, you know, obviously, we'll work with people no matter what, but, okay. Well, I mean, if that's, people are comfortable with those dates, then that's what we'll run with, but I do wanna get it, you know, get it finished off, cause we don't need that sitting out there any longer, so.
Have we got any more?
We haven't
Nope.
seen anything in a while.
No, we haven't.
Linda, would you mind emailing Laura tomorrow and just make sure, see
Yep.
where she's at with that? 'Cause I know when I talked to her last, she was prepared to have a few more of the sections out to send.
Okay, there was a couple of things in her last one too that I have questions on, so.
Sure. Well, if anybody does have those and has questions about them, just let me know, because we can always forward those up. Couple other things I just wanted to highlight, Mr. Chair. Since our last meeting, staff did meet with, the city engineer and myself, and, we met with both, the Bigelow Development folks and the Blaine Development folks. And, you know, the Bigelow Development is gonna be coming to council pretty soon here, probably, maybe even the end of this month or the beginning of March. The Carter Blaine Development is gonna probably wait a little while. They requested some more time for some more consideration, but nothing that affects you guys here, just so you know where that issue is at, is that you may see it coming in the next couple of months, but the Blaine one will probably be a little bit longer than the Bigelow one. We do feel like we've gotten some good progress on making sure that everyone's comfortable with design and stuff like that, so.
Anything else anyone would like to discuss? Yeah, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's more like it, yeah. Can't promise they're all gonna be that length, so unfortunately.
They're not gonna.
No.
You only have a short drive tonight.
Yeah, well, that's true. I don't have to go back anywhere. I'm all moved in, so.
That's good, right?
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah, now I gotta pay those taxes. Man, this council, they're working me over.